Chicago, December 2024. A city that never sleeps, or so they say. Beneath the towering steel of the Loop, beneath the endless hum of traffic and the howl of winter winds off Lake Michigan, something's changed. For exactly 13 minutes every midnight, something strange takes hold. The wind doesn't just fade, it dies. The cars don't just quiet, they vanish into a void of sound, and a heavy, unnatural silence drapes itself over the Loop, like a curtain drawn tight across a stage no one dares step onto. It's not just the absence of noise, it's as if the city itself is holding its breath, waiting for something or someone to break the spell. It started 2 weeks ago on a night so cold the air felt like knives. The forecast had warned of a blizzard, the kind that buries streets and shuts down the CTA for days. Mike, a delivery guy who's been biking these streets for years, was making his last run of the night. He pedaled hard down Michigan Avenue, past the glowing storefronts and the skeletal trees bending under the snow. The city was alive then, horns blaring, pedestrians shouting, the wind rattling the signs above the magnificent mile. And then, at the stroke of midnight, it stopped. Not gradually, not softly, it stopped dead. Mike slammed his brakes, his tires skidding on the icy pavement. He looked around, his breath fogging in the air, and realized he couldn't hear a thing. Not the wind, not the traffic, not even his own heartbeat. He fumbled for his phone, hands shaking, and hit record. "Listen to this," he muttered, his voice trembling. But when he played it back, there was nothing, just static, crackling like a broken signal. He stood there, alone in the middle of Michigan Avenue, staring at a city that felt wrong. The next morning, the blizzard had eased, but the questions hadn't. Posts started popping up on X, one after another, like sparks catching fire. Did anyone else feel the silence at midnight? Someone wrote from Wicker Park. It was like the world turned off, another posted from Lincoln Square. 13 minutes of nothing. What the hell is this? A third chimed in from Edgewater. Mike wasn't alone. Dozens of people, maybe more, had felt it. Drivers stuck at intersections, bartenders closing up downtown, insomniacs staring out their windows. They all described the same thing, a silence so thick it pressed against their ears, a stillness that didn't belong in a place like Chicago. Some called it a fluke, a weird trick of the storm. Others weren't so sure. And me, I couldn't let it go. My name's Sam Carter. I'm a late-night DJ on an AM radio station that's been on life support since the 90s. WCHI 1490, broadcasting from a cramped little studio on the 12th floor of a building nobody cares about, right in the heart of downtown Chicago. I've spent years talking into the void, playing old jazz records, reading the weather, chatting with the handful of truckers and night owls who still tune in. That night, 2 weeks ago, I was on air when it happened. The clock hit midnight and my voice just stopped registering. I tapped the mic, checked the cables. Nothing. The needles on the soundboard flatlined. Even the hum of the heater in the corner disappeared. I glanced at the clock, 12:01, and it didn't move. For 13 minutes, I sat there, staring out the window at the snow swirling past the Willis Tower, feeling like I'd slipped into a dream I couldn't wake up from. I've lived in this city my whole life, through blackouts, blizzards, riots, and I've never felt anything like this. It wasn't just quiet, it was empty, like the soul of Chicago had been sucked out and left me behind. When the sound came back at 12:13, sharp and sudden, I knew I couldn't ignore it. I had to find out what was happening. The next night, I dragged an old radio into the studio, one of those heavy wood-paneled relics my grandpa kept in the basement, all dials and static. I'd always thought it was junk, but something told me to bring it. I set it up on the desk next to the modern gear that failed me and waited. Midnight came again. The silence returned, heavier this time, pressing down on me like a weight I couldn't shake. I turned on the old radio, twisting the dial through the hiss of dead air, searching for anything, news, music, a signal. And then I heard it. Voices. Not loud, not clear, but there, muffled, distant, like whispers carried on a wind that wasn't blowing. They sounded desperate, overlapping in a way that made my skin crawl. "Help," one seemed to say. "Here," another rasped. I froze, my hand still on the dial, my heart pounding against my ribs. The static pulsed and the voices faded in and out, too faint to understand, too real to ignore. I sat there, staring at that old radio, its green glow flickering in the dark, until the silence broke at 12:13, and the city roared back to life. What did I just hear? This isn't just silence. It's something more. The echoes are still whispering. What would you do if you heard those voices in the dark? Chicago, December 2024. A city gripped by an unnatural silence every midnight, 13 minutes, where sound itself seems to vanish. Last time I heard something in that void. Voices, faint and desperate, whispering through the static of an old radio. I'm Sam Carter, a late-night DJ on WCHI 1490, and I can't shake what I found. This isn't just a quiet night in the loop. It's something alive, something calling out, and I'm going to find it. After that first night, I couldn't let it go. I set up my gear, my grandpa's old radio, a recorder, anything that might catch what I'd heard. Midnight came again, the blizzard outside howling against the studio windows until it didn't. At 12:03, the silence hit sharp, heavy, like a wall dropping over the city. I turned on the radio, dialed through the static, and there they were again. The voices. "Help," one rasped, barely audible. "Here," another cut in, overlapping like a broken chorus. I hit record this time, my hand steady despite the chill creeping up my spine. When the silence broke at 12:13, I played it back. The static hissed, but the voices were there, faint, garbled, real. I dumped the file onto my laptop and ran it through software I used to clean up audio. The waveforms spiked where the voices hit, but here's the thing. They only showed up on that old AM radio. My modern mics, my phone, nothing else caught them. It's like they're stuck in a frequency the world forgot. I needed more. I started digging old forums, X-posts, anything about strange silences in Chicago. Most were noise complaints or CTA rants, but one thread caught my eye. A user, Windy City 73, posted, "Heard this back in 73, during the big blizzard. Voices in the static, same time of night. Stopped when the snow melted." The 73 blizzard, Chicago's worst in decades. I remembered my dad talking about it. Snowdrifts taller than cars, power out for days. I called an old regular, Eddie, a retired cabbie who listens to my show. He picked up, voice rough from years of smokes. "Yeah, Sam, I remember 73, he said. "Heard those whispers on my cab radio. Thought I was losing it. Came from near West Loop, some old tower out there." A tower? I pulled up a map. West Loop's full of warehouses now, but there it was, an abandoned radio relay station, shut down since the 80s. Could that be it? That night I couldn't wait. I grabbed my recorder, the old radio, and drove out there. The streets were slick with ice, the city dim under the storm. The tower loomed ahead, rusted, skeletal, a relic against the snow. I parked near a chain-link fence, its gate long gone, and stepped out. The wind bit at my face, tugging my coat as I crossed the lot. Inside, the air was stale, thick with dust and decay. Broken glass crunched under my boots. I set the radio on a cracked table, its wood splintered from years of neglect. Midnight hit. The silence fell again, harder this time, pressing against my ears. I tuned the dial static, then voices, louder now. "Help, trapped," they pleaded, clear enough to make my breath catch. I hit record, watching the needle jump. The radio's glow flickered, and then it started to heat up too hot to touch, like it was alive. I yanked my hand back as the voices spiked, a jumble of cries cutting through the static. The air felt wrong, thick, electric. What's here with me? This isn't just a signal, it's a scream from somewhere else. The echoes are getting louder. Chicago, December 2024. A silence that swallows the city every midnight, carrying voices from the past. Last time I, Sam Carter, stepped into an abandoned tower in West Loop, chasing echoes, screaming through the static of an old radio. The voices grew louder. Help, trapped, and the radio burned like it was alive. It wasn't just a signal, it was pulling me in. And now I know the truth. I stood in that tower, the air cold and rotten around me. The midnight silence hit, heavier than ever, like time itself had stopped. The radio pulsed on the table, its green glow flickering. I turned the dial, static, then voices, so clear I stumbled back. "We're here, trapped," they said, no longer whispers but muffled cries. I searched the place, boots kicking cans and glass, until I found a rusted box under broken boards. Inside, old papers, yellowed clippings from 1973. "Radio crew vanishes in blizzard," one headline read. It was WCHI, my station, before it moved. On December 23rd, 5 techs got stuck in the tower during the worst storm ever. The transmitter failed. The cold took them. No bodies were found. My stomach dropped. Those voices, were they? I went back to the radio, recorder rolling. The voices rose, names now Jim, Ellen, and a chill hit me. They matched the clippings. "We couldn't get out. The signal," they moaned. The transmitter, a metal beast in the corner, was cold, but its lights blinked like it was on. I touched it, icy, yet humming. The silence felt alive, closing in. Then it hit me. What if the transmitter never stopped? What if it caught them? Not just their voices, but them, trapped in a lost frequency. The radio heated up more, smoke rising. "Get us out," a voice yelled, loud enough to hurt. I had to try something. I grabbed a screwdriver from my bag, hands shaking, and pried open the transmitter's panel. Old wires, dust, a burnt smell. The voices went wild. "Yes, now," and I saw a fuse glowing, impossible for something so old. I yanked it hard. A spark flew, the radio screeched static, and the voices cut off. The silence shattered at 12:13, the city roaring back. I checked the transmitter, dead, cold. A faint "thank you" whispered and faded. I thought it was over. Then came the shock. In the corner, through shadows, I saw something. 5 shapes, faint like smoke in the snow. Not bodies, but outlines, staring at me. One nodded slowly, and they dissolved into the air, carried by wind through a broken window. My recorder dropped, still on. I grabbed it and played it back. The voices were gone, but something new was there. My name, Sam, in a tone that wasn't theirs. It was mine. Did I record that now, or was I always in the frequency? The silence stopped, but the echoes didn't. They found me. And I wonder, who else is listening? What would you do if your own echo called you back? Comment, subscribe. The shadows have more to say.